On 14 August, 20-some kilometers behind the contact line, a Buk-M2 is sitting in a tree line with its missile tubes up and its radar warm, watching a wedge of sky for exactly the sort of thing that is already coming for it. A Ukrainian strike drone is inside the tree line's own approach lane, low under the beam and closing. The launcher is a machine built for one purpose: to find flying things and take them apart at 45 kilometers. It is warm. It is looking. The drone belongs to the Hornet unit of Ukraine's 3rd Regiment, and it is flying a route that was drawn on a map days before it ever left the ground. Not a straight line. A crooked one, running along tree belts and drainage cuts and the shadow of a road embankment, because every meter of the direct approach is inside the engagement envelope of the thing it is going to hit. Ahead of it, the launcher's own radar is sweeping. Behind it, an operator is watching a video feed that will, at some point in the next few minutes, be attacked. Hold on to two things about this flight. The first is that the drone is deliberately staying below the height at which the Buk can see it. The second is that the Buk crew, at this moment, believes their biggest problem is Ukrainian aircraft. The sky the drone is sneaking under belongs to the middle layer of the Russian air defense pyramid, and that is the whole shape of the problem in front of it. The S-400 sits at the top of that pyramid and reaches out hundreds of kilometers at high, fast targets. The Pantsir and the Tor sit at the bottom. They do the close-in swatting the last few kilometers. The Buk is the middle. It is the layer that catches aircraft, cruise missiles, and larger drones out at range. And the M2 is the version where each launcher grew up. Older Buks needed a separate radar vehicle riding along to light up the target while the launcher fired. The M2's launcher carries its own phased array engagement radar right on the turret. It can search, track, and guide entirely on its own. Its missile reaches out to somewhere around 45 to 50 kilometers and up to 25 kilometers of altitude. That independence is why it was parked where it was. A launcher that does not need a friend can sit forward, alone, in a tree line nobody would think to check and hold a slice of sky over the front. It can move at short notice. It can shoot at short notice. It covers the ground troops from air attack, and on paper it covers itself. That is the promise. 20 to 40 kilometers behind the contact line is supposed to be the reward for it. Far enough that artillery cannot reach. Far enough that the small battery-powered quadcopters swarming the trenches run out of range and out of link long before they get there. Close enough that its missiles still cover the men at the front. The Russian planners who chose that tree line chose it because of that arithmetic, and the arithmetic was correct for a long time. The problem is that the arithmetic quietly stopped being correct, and nobody told the crew. Ukrainian strike units have spent 2 years pushing the reach of the cheap end of the drone war outward, 10 kilometers at a time. Fiber-optic machines that trail a hair-thin glass thread instead of a radio link. Small fixed-wing airframes that carry a warhead and enough fuel to fly a crooked route the long way around. Relay drones sitting high and quiet, holding a link open over ground where a link should not exist. The safe rear did not get attacked all at once. It got eaten inward, a few kilometers a season, until the 20-kilometer mark stopped being a wall and became just another piece of ground with a drone over it. The launcher in the tree line is worth a great deal of money, and considerably more than that in what it does. A Buk-M2 complex runs into the tens of millions of dollars. The full battery, launchers and command vehicle and acquisition radar sits in the 100 million range. But the money is the least interesting part of it. What that launcher buys the Russian side is a piece of sky that Ukrainian pilots and Ukrainian strike drones have to route around. Every mission planner on the Ukrainian side knows the envelope is there and plans the long way. Remove the launcher and the map redraws itself for everything that flies. So the objective is simple to state and hard to reach. Get something with a warhead to that tree line without the tree line seeing it coming. And the first wall is already sweeping. The launcher's own radar is a phased array, and it is very good at what it was built to do. It searches a sector, sorts moving returns from clutter, and hands a track to the missiles. Against an aircraft at 3,000 meters, it is close to unbeatable inside its range. Against a drone flying at 15 meters over a plowed field, it is looking at a target with almost no radar cross-section. Mixed into the ground return of every furrow, fence post, and power pole under the beam. Radar energy that hits the ground comes back too. A small object hugging that ground is buried inside the noise, so the route holds low. Not a stunt, a requirement. The flight profile keeps the airframe under the beam and inside the visual mess of the terrain, using the same tree belts that make the treeline attractive as a hiding place. Every windbreak between the line and the target is a wall the radar has to see past. That handles the launcher's eyes. It does not handle the launcher's friends. Because a Buk-M2 sitting alone in a field is not supposed to be alone. Russian doctrine wraps a high-value asset like this in layers. Outward from the vehicle, radio reconnaissance and electronic warfare post that listen for control links and satellite receivers and try to jam whatever they hear. Radar and human spotter pickets watching the low approaches for quadcopters. Mobile fire teams on pickups with heavy machine guns, sometimes a twin 23mm gun for the last-ditch kinetic answer. And increasingly, interceptor drones held ready to launch and ram an incoming FPV out of the air before it arrives. 5 overlapping tripwires. That is the theory. Each one is supposed to catch what the previous one missed. The electronic warfare layer is the one that matters most because it is the layer that has stopped more Ukrainian drones than every machine gun on the front put together. A truck-mounted jammer does not shoot anything down. It floods a slice of sky with radio noise across a radius of tens of kilometers and waits for the drone's link to break. And it escalates. Wideband noise first, a blanket over everything. Then if that fails, it narrows and pours full power onto the specific bands small drones lean on hardest. The analog video and control channels down at 1.2 and up at 5.8 GHz. Then if that fails too, it stops jamming and starts lying, broadcasting counterfeit satellite signals so a drone's receiver computes a position that is not where it is and drifts politely into an empty field. Blinding, and the machine notices. Lying. And it does not. That is the wall waiting in front of the tree line, and the route was drawn around every layer of it. There are 2 ways past a jammer, and Ukrainian units fly both. The first is to never sit still on a frequency. The control and video links jump across many channels inside an encrypted band dozens of times a second. Every time the jammer finds one and buries it, the link has already moved somewhere else. The feed stutters. It does not die. The jammer spends the whole engagement one hop behind, chasing a signal that is never where it just was. The second way is more brutal and more final. Do not use a radio link at all. A fiber-optic drone flies out trailing a glass thread thinner than a hair off a spool in its belly, and the picture and the commands run down the wire. There is nothing on the air to jam. There is nothing on the air to detect either, which means the radio reconnaissance post that is supposed to hear a drone coming hears exactly the same empty sky it heard an hour ago. The trade is that the spool has a length, and that length is the mission's hard limit, somewhere in the 10 to 20 kilometer band. You have to launch close, and you have to fly a route that does not snag the wire. Whichever answer this flight carried, the effect at the far end of it is the same. The launcher's protective screen is looking for a signal, and there is either no signal to find or no way to hold on to it. Around the halfway point of the run, the video goes wrong. Not black, worse than black. The picture freezes on one frame, releases, freezes again, the ground under the nose jumping forward in chunks instead of flowing. Latency climbs. The stick input the operator makes now shows up on screen a beat late, which means every correction is a guess about where the airframe already is rather than where it was. This is the moment most of these missions end, and it ends them quietly. A drone that loses its picture over unfamiliar ground at 15 meters does not glide gracefully to a stop. It finds a tree. The operator does not chase the picture. Chasing is what breaks the airframe. He holds the last known heading, flies the shape of the route from memory, and waits for the link to catch up, which is exactly what the hopping is designed to let him do. 7 seconds. 8. The frames start flowing again. The nose is a little off the planned line and considerably closer to a stand of poplars than anyone wanted, and the drone is still flying. Whatever the ground station is doing back there, it did not get this one. That freeze is the setback the whole route was built to survive. And surviving it is the moment this stops being a plan and becomes a strike. Everything after it is arithmetic and nerve. Then the last few kilometers and the second wall. At this range, the position stops being a set of coordinates and becomes a place. The nose camera picks out the shape of the tree belt, then the gap in it, then the vehicle. Camouflage netting over the hull draped to break the outline the way every manual says. Netting is honest work. It cuts the visual signature. It takes the hard edges off the silhouette. It defeats a fast look from altitude. It does not defeat patience. A large tracked vehicle that has sat on a prepared position for days leaves a signature no net covers. Crushed vegetation under the tracks, the beaten path where the crew walks to the tree line, the support vehicles parked in a neat and very military relationship to it, the flattened ground where a launcher swung its turret. Something found that position before this flight ever launched. The net bought concealment. It never bought invisibility. And the vehicle is exactly what the planners were told it would be. The Buk-M2 launcher is unmistakable up close. A tracked chassis, a boxy turret, 4 missiles in their tubes lying along the top, and the engagement radar mounted at the front of the turret. Missiles designed to reach up 25 kilometers, sitting 3 meters off the deck in the open. Here is the geometry the crew never worked out. A Buk's minimum engagement range is measured in kilometers. Its missile needs distance and altitude to arm, to steer, to guide. There is a bubble of air immediately around the launcher, out to several kilometers and down to the dirt that its own weapon physically cannot touch. The launcher was simply never designed for a threat that arrives inside its own minimum range, at treetop height, from the direction of its own supply road. Everything about that machine's engagement envelope is aimed outward and upward. The drone is coming in flat and close. The last 200 meters take about 6 seconds. The camera fills with the shape of the hull. The dive line goes to the seam where the launcher rail meets the turret, which is the whole point, because a warhead in the 1 to 3 kilogram class does not take apart a 30-ton tracked vehicle on its own. It works like a match. What it needs is to reach something that will do the real work for it, and there are 4 such somethings lying in the open on top of that turret, each one carrying a solid rocket motor and a high-explosive warhead of its own. The feed goes to static. What the footage shows next is the answer to everything the flight was built around. The strike tears into the launcher. The vehicle's own missiles go up. The hull vents fire from the inside, the propellant of its own ammunition feeding it, the netting gone in the first second the turret opened. The system built to shoot down aircraft at 45 kilometers was destroyed by an object it could have engaged at any point in the previous 20 minutes of flight if it had ever seen it. It never saw it. That is the finding, and it is not a small one. What Russia lost in that tree line runs deeper than one vehicle on a list. The money first, and the money is real. A launcher of this class with its own radar on the turret is a tens of millions of dollars asset, and the battery it belongs to runs into 9 figures. The airframe that reached it cost somewhere between a few hundred and a few $1,000s, depending on which class flew that route. That exchange ratio is the entire economics of the Ukrainian drone program in one frame of video. Then the hole in the sky. Every Buk launcher covers a sector, and that sector is the reason certain Ukrainian flight paths do not exist. Take the launcher out and the sector opens. Ukrainian aircraft that had to route wide can route shorter. Strike drones that had to fly around can fly through. The neighboring batteries have to stretch to cover ground that was not theirs an hour ago, and stretched air defense is thin air defense, with seams in it that were not there before. Then the doctrinal problem, which is the expensive one. The layered counter-drone screen around that launcher is supposed to be 5 tripwires deep, and every single one of them was silent. The electronic warfare post did not break the link or had nothing to break. The spotters did not call the low approach. The gun teams never fired. No interceptor launched. Nothing in that chain performed, and better equipment will not fix it. The real gap is that Russia now has to assign a full point defense package to every high-value air defense vehicle in a belt 40 kilometers deep, and it does not have enough of them to do that. Protecting the protectors costs more than the protectors are worth. And so, the choice lands on the Russian commander who has to place the next launcher. Push it forward where it covers the troops, and it is inside the reach of things like the one that flew this route. Pull it back where it is safe, and the men at the front lose their umbrella. There is no third option. Every meter of safety comes out of the coverage. Remember the 2 things to hold onto from the start of this flight. The drone stayed under the beam, and the crew believed their problem was aircraft. Both turned out to be the same fact seen from opposite ends. That launcher spent its entire operational life pointed at the sky it was designed to own, and it died to a threat flying at the height of a tree, from the direction of its own service road, carrying a warhead a man can lift with one hand. 20 to 40 kilometers behind the line used to be the answer to the drone problem. Distance was the armor. That tree line was chosen because of it, and the choice was reasonable on the day it was made. It stopped being reasonable somewhere in the last year, quietly, without an announcement, and the crews of the systems parked in that band are learning it one launcher at a time. The line of which kilometer is safe has moved again. The defenders moved it.